Hello, dear friends, family, and concerned members of the public. We are gathered here today in this most sacred cathedral of St. Thomas Howard's the Merciless to say our final farewells to our beloved friend, the Elder Scrolls Legends. It is with heavy heart that I am here to deliver this eulogy, and it is with tears in my eyes that I have to lower this card game with great potential in the grave, just because the game was never really given a proper identity, or direction, or even something to call it better than Hearthstone. Let me be clear about something. The Elder Scrolls Legends is not a bad game. It is not an ugly game, and although it might look a lot like Hearthstone, it certainly isn't an uninspired game. No, none of the above. What the Elder Scrolls Legend was, above all else, was an unnecessary game that was very easy to play without paying, which is a death sentence for any card game. So rest in peace, sweet prince. You were someone else's mistake, but you were a joy for so many people, just not enough to keep you afloat. But how did we get here? The year is 2015. Top dog Pete Hines is on stage at E3 looking as dead-faced as ever, telling the proud people of E3 and therefore the world about an exciting new Elder Scrolls adventure. The reaction is just as you expect.
Tonight, we are pleased to announce The Elder Scrolls Legends, a strategy card game that builds on the rich legacy of Skyrim and The Elder Scrolls Online and brings the world of The Elder Scrolls to a completely new genre. Here's a sneak peek.
An initial pause, then a quick processing of whatever they just heard, then the world's most awkward clapping that lasts a total of 2 seconds, and then back to feeling awkward. Side note, on a completely unrelated note, Blizzard had launched Hearthstone 3 years prior, and it turned out to be a very lucrative game. Millions of players, millions of packs to open, millions of doubloons in Blizzard's wallet. Cha-ching, cha-ching. And from then on, everyone wanted a piece of the pie. I am sure you all remember Artifact. And 2 years after this announcement, on a fateful March the 7th, 2017, the game was made available on Windows, and in typical Bethesda fashion, it would go on to be available in several platforms. Now, to say that this game was not well received by the community wouldn't be wrong, but I feel like it wouldn't be correct either. People liked this game. It was good. However, it never seemed to be quite good enough to compete. I will explain in the card game critique section of this video why I, as a chronic shiny cardboard enthusiast, believe this to be the case, but Bethesda was sure that this game would eventually grow on people, so they kept pushing and pushing and pushing. New expansions, new DLCs, new stories, a competitive scene, new cards, and a change in developers leading to a complete visual rework, and a lot of subsequent engine problems. But nothing seemed to work. And every month, save for only a handful, the player numbers kept going down on Steam. Hey, do you want to know what the best feature The Elder Scrolls Legends ever brought to the card game market? Affordability. The game was very easy to get into, and you could easily make competitive decks without spending a dime. The game had story DLCs that you could buy, but they weren't mandatory. Now, of course, with every new expansion, there came new stuff that players could buy, and they did introduce pre-purchases for every expansion, but nothing too pay to win, at least for card game standards, which are admittedly quite low. Now, all that I just said happened throughout the course of 2 years, which are a lot of changes in a relatively small amount of time, even for a live service game. And then the expansion Jaws of Oblivion was released, and it is by many people considered to be the worst update this game ever got. And the same month that this update was released, the game had its final update and was never again touched by its own developers. It entered maintenance mode, which means it's no longer being developed and there are no plans for any new additions. But the game was still available. In time, Bethesda pushed this game more and more to the side, playing with their brand new toys like a spoiled toddler. Those toys, of course, being the Elder Scrolls Blades and the Elder Scrolls Castles. And one fateful day in 2024, more than 5 years after the game was placed on maintenance, Bethesda decided to place a pillow over its head while it was sleeping, thus killing it for good. It will close its eyes forever on the 30th of January 2025, or has closed its eyes forever, depending on when I release this video or when you're watching it. And this is where this story ends, with Bethesda making an attempt at cashing a check from the card game player base, trying yet failing, putting the game on a coma, and then more than 5 years later, pulling the plug so they can make different games no one ever asked for mobile devices instead. And this is the story that people know, but let me tell you this exact story from my eyes, as someone who has been playing card games for years by now. And I have gone through everything: Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Legends, Tales of Tribute, Little Alchemist, you get the idea. And I feel like I can provide a unique critique about this game, so I will do just that in the form of a card game critique. The Elder Scrolls Legends is a weird combination between Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone. I never actually played Hearthstone. I was gonna give it a go for the sake of making this critique properly, but then I remembered that I made a Daedric pact with Clavigus Vial, whereby I am contractually obligated to never again touch a single Blizzard game, and in exchange, the Daedric Prince of Bargains made me forget everything about Warcraft Reforged. All things considered, Clavigus Vial gave me a pretty sweet deal for that one. Test Legends is very simple when it comes to gameplay. You have creatures, supports, actions, and items. Creatures have attack and defense. If the attack of a creature is greater than the attacked creature's defense, then the attacked creature is destroyed. Alternatively, it permanently loses defense equal to the attack of the other creature. Items and supports provide buffs for creatures or make the opponent's life more difficult. And actions are different cards that can be played instantly with a wide range of effects, from healing to damaging to buffing or debuffing. Basically, they are spell cards from Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering, but they can only be casted during the caster's turn, meaning no quick plays. Both players start with 30 HP and every card needs Magicka to be used. Every player starts with 1 Magicka and all Magicka is refunded every turn +1, with the cap being 12 Magicka for both players, unless special cards are being used. As far as card games go, very simple. Unlike Magic the Gathering, Magicka is generated without using cards, and it is the attacking player who chooses what to attack, unless the player being attacked has a guard creature in their lane, in which case they can only attack it. There are 2 lanes: the base lane and a lane where creatures cannot be attacked the turn they are summoned. Creatures cannot attack the turn they are summoned unless they have the charge ability. There are a bunch of other stuff you have to take into account, like monster effects and unique monster buffs, but that's not important. Now here's the deal. When you're introducing a card game, you need to be able to have that awesomeness factor. Something has to be so good and well made that people play the game chasing that specific feeling. Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic are perfect examples of this. Feelings like perfectly being able to read your opponent's cards in hand based on what they're playing on the field, breaking an opponent's board with 10 negates, or managing your resources to give you a slight edge over your opponent are the backbone of every card game. Of these factors, Legends only has resource management as a way of outplaying your opponent. The opponent cannot play on your turn, so you are left to just see who can outpace the other and find lethal first. That's the first flaw for me. The more I interact with the opponent and the more they interact with me, the more I have to be on my toes and make more calculated decisions. And the more I'm thinking about what they're thinking about what I'm thinking. If that isn't the dream, then I don't know what is. Now, that doesn't mean that Legends is bad or that it can't be competitive. What it does mean is that if it wants to be competitive as a sort of esport, it has to make sure to get the element of strategic resource control seriously. If they perfect this element of knowing what to do and when to do it to get an edge over the opponent, and if they manage to reduce the randomness factor that comes hand to hand with card games to a minimum, then, in my opinion, I think that the game can succeed. See, in a card game, you can never really get rid of the element of RNG. You can open the best possible combo or the best possible cards for a given situation, or you can draw a pile of bricks. Any added layer of RNG must be done very, very carefully, especially in the case of Legends that isn't as opponent interactive as Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh. And here comes Prophecy.
Close ranks, let nothing through.
Prophecy is a system whereby whenever a player loses 5 points of HP, they draw a card. If the card they draw is a Prophecy card, they can instantly play it without paying cost on the opponent's turn and have it attack on their turn. If you were to pitch this game to me, if I met a friend at like a locals and they tried to get me to play this game and take it seriously as a card game, and they start explaining the rules and I'm listening, going something like, dude, this game is very resource focused, it's Elder Scrolls inspired, you don't need fields to generate mana, it's a lot simpler, you can choose what to attack, I would be on on board and attempt to take it somewhat seriously up until the point where prophecy comes up. Think about it. You are like, okay, no quick play spells, focus on mana and strategic placement of creatures in different lanes. Also, here is this random X factor that undoes all of that. And it's not just that either. Prophecy cards range all the way from creatures with no buffs all the way to creatures with guard, meaning you can attack anything else on the lane they are placed on. I will speak in terms of other card games so that other card game players can understand. For Yu-Gi-Oh players, every time your opponent takes 2000 points of damage, they can draw either a Mirror Force they can instantly activate, a random Battle Trap, or a creature which they can summon right away. For Magic players, every time your opponent takes 4 points of damage, they can draw a card, and then there's a chance that they can instantly activate the card without paying the mana cost. And for Pokemon players, every time your opponent loses a Pokemon, they can draw a card, and if it is a Pokemon card, they can instantly place it on the active zone and then have it use its abilities without the cost of energy. Some say that you can just prepare to play through Prophecy, and that by attacking into Prophecy, a player is overextending and getting punished for doing so. But I counter-argue. How can I prepare for something that is random in when it triggers and in what effect triggers? You can go through a game not experiencing Prophecy once, or every time a rune is broken, it can trigger Prophecy. When I think of playing around something, I operate under the assumption of my opponent telegraphing me what they're gonna do. Example using Yu-Gi-Oh! You enter battle phase and your opponent has a single card set on their side of the field and nothing else, and you have lethal on board. You can now attack and attempt to win the game, but your opponent is unfazed and won't concede. Does that mean that the back row is Mirror Force? Or are they just bluffing a Mirror Force? Who plays Mirror Force in 2025 anyway? So you attack, and it turns out to, in fact, be Mirror Force. And from that point on, you always keep a single slot open in the extra deck for Nightmare Phoenix. This is overextending. Your opponent made a calculation and you played into it. Therefore, you got punished. In a game where resources are such a crucial aspect, 1,000 times more crucial than they are in Yu-Gi-Oh mind you, the concept of playing around a 100% random proc chance with an 100% random effect chance is ludicrous to me. It feels amazing when you draw into Prophecy. You did nothing and got rewarded. It also sucks when your opponent draws Prophecy because they did nothing and they got rewarded. Other than, you know, putting the card in the deck, but that's beside the point. Maybe you have outpaced your opponent so much that it doesn't change anything, but in the back of your head, you're always gonna have that same feeling. What if I wasn't this far ahead? What if that piercing javelin just lost me the entire game? Now, despite all I just said, I don't consider Prophecy to be the main reason why Test Legends failed. It is maybe a reason to be sure, but I don't think it's the main one. It's only off-putting if you are taking the game seriously, but most casual players won't even care about it. Admittedly, other card games have a lot more RNG built into them. It stings a bit more in the case of Legends because it's not as interactive as those other card games, but it's not like it ruins the game. It only makes it more off-putting if you want to take it super competitively. You want to know what actually led to the end of Legends? Well, let me tell ya. See, when you're introducing a card game in a market which is by all metrics getting a bit saturated with them, you better make sure that you give people something unique so that when they do give your game a shot, they can then recommend it to other people. To do that, you have to make sure that your game is recommendable. And to do even that, you gotta make sure that it's better in what other card games are bad at. And in my opinion, the biggest problem with card games has always been power creep. To sell new colorful cardboard, new cards are introduced that are more powerful than the previous cards. So if, say, Hearthstone introduces a blatantly overpowered set made to sell product, Legends can then come with its more generous monetization system and take those thirsty consumers and give them something, albeit a bit more confused, but a lot more reliable. But to do that, Legends has to not become a victim to the trap of power creep. Introducing Jaws of Oblivion, which brings the brand new Invade mechanic, aka buy it or lose to an 18 defense Oblivion gate and they draw with every single buff known to man. I could get into what Invade is and how it works and why so many people hated it, but I'm not about that life. Just know that it was a blatant use of power creep used to sell product, and with that, Legends officially had nothing going on for it. See, time investment is a thing that exists. and Konami can release a tier 0 meta after a tier 0 meta, and I will still play Yu-Gi-Oh! I might play a different game if it gets really bad, but that game has to be better than the one I'm playing right now, because people, by default, always choose the game they spend the most amount of money and time playing to begin with. A new game that can provide relief from the issues of the older games may be able to break through and get people's attention and money. But with Jaws of Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls Legends officially solidified itself as not that game, thus reducing its own image to that of just another Hearthstone clone, which is the image that you all probably know it as today. It's not that the game isn't fun or strategic or competitive, it's that it's not fun enough, it's not strategic enough, and it's not competitive enough. Thus, no one has any incentive to choose it over already existing card games. As we approach the end of the card game critique section of this video, I can hear you all asking the same question. Hey Kotho, I thought you were here to talk about Tesla. Why did I just sit through a card game critique, of all things? Well, simple answer. I feel like Bethesda came out of Legends having picked up only the worst lessons imaginable, and we only just now began experiencing the aftermath of bad gaming decisions and narrow-mindedness. I believe that Legends is, at least partially, the reason why Blades and Castles are so pay to win, and why we also got paid mods for Starfield so early on. I feel like what they gathered from Legends wasn't to check the consumer market for what gamers want, or make games with a core focus in them. What they actually took away from Legends is, if you're gonna make a game, make sure to give people as many incentives as possible to give you their money, or else your game might just fail. Does this ring a bell? And I can't help but wonder, is this part of the reason why they pushed paid mods for Starfield so early on? Is it a way of saying, hey, at least if the game fails, we milk the existing player base for as much money as they're willing to give us before the ship completely sank? If this is the case, and I assume that at least to a degree it is, then what a tremendous display of narrow-mindedness. Why not just take away the PvP and sell the solo missions for a small price? I will say that it is miles better than both Blades and Castles, but I bet that none of this is what you people are actually here for. You're subscribed to this channel because you want to hear about Tesla, and I am here to give the masses what they paid for. So, what's the deal with the stories of the Elder Scrolls Legends? Mixed bag. The stories of the Elder Scrolls Legends are one huge mixed bag. I love the Isles of Madness and the Clockwork City DLCs. I have nothing bad to say about the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood, and I don't like the main story. Let's explore why. But before that, I want to mention that in order, these stories were released as follows. The main quest was released first, followed by the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood, followed by the Return to the Clockwork City, and then finally Isles of Madness. However, I will cover the Isles of Madness as the third story and leave the Clockwork City to last, because it concludes the story of the Forgotten Hero, and because, in my opinion, it's the best story out of all of them. Starting off with the main story, and it's by far the roughest one of the bunch, but to an extent, it has some stuff going on for it. First, we get this shot of Mundus inside the eye of an owl. Nice. I made 2 sentences into the lore commentary until I had to mention an owl, and I am setting this as my new record. So there's this image of the universe inside the eye of an owl, and then we're introduced to the main duo of these stories, Kellen and Na. Next to nothing is known about these 2 characters, and what we do know is mostly observation. We can gather that they are on a hunt for Elder Scrolls, and that Kellen is most likely a moth priest because he can read them.
The Elder Scrolls show us what was, and what yet will be, and they have revealed much to me.
As a matter of fact, all the main stories in this game, save for the Shivering Owl story, are all stories Kellen was told by the Elder Scrolls, which she and Na are now gathering. All of these stories are stories Kellen says to the people around him, mostly Na, while they are searching for the precious scrolls. As a matter of fact, when you buy these stories, they have an Elder Scrolls opening animation. I get the feeling that they wanted to do something more with these 2 characters, but given that their runtime was cut short, those plans never came to fruition. And I want to mention something real quick about this owl and about Kellen. Kellen, despite being able to read the scrolls, is not blind, and the owl and him seem to share some kind of common eye trait. They both have one eye that glows together, and also they glow at the same time. The owl isn't seen much again after the main story, but it's still around in the background. It might just be an artistic depiction, but the way this owl comes up time and time again, it seems to be a divine force that prevents Kellen from going blind and watches over the heroes of the main quest. Now, the only Aedra that is depicted as an owl is of course Julianus. So Julianus, Junal, wisdom, looking after mortals to prevent a Daedric invasion, helping a moth priest gain wisdom, has knowledge of Mundus. It kind of makes sense, but it can't just be an artistic depiction. Again, these stories were cut short, so Kellen and Na are in a camp of some undefined tribe, and the war chief of the clan has been gravely injured, and their enemy is rallying for another attack. Kellen tells the war maiden that he has a story for her, to which she dismisses the moth priest, and the Na tells him that they should leave, as they have gotten the Elder Scroll that they are after, and things will soon get bloody again. But Kellen dismisses Na and tells the war maiden Isha about the story of the forgotten hero. He begins by painting the picture of the Great War between the Imperials and the newly formed Altmeri Dominion. It describes the death and the persecution of the Blades, the occupation of the Imperial city by the Dominion, and the actions of Tyrus Mead II, who fled north as to avoid being killed. The forgotten hero, the main character of the story, starts as a prisoner, who has to fight an ex-member of the Blades in the arena of the Imperial City for the amusement of Daedra and Daedra worshippers. They then work together to escape the arena after teaming up and facing against cultists and a Daedra called Reeve. I know that Daedra aren't exactly sharp unless they perhaps serve a smart Daedric lord or unless they have some level of autonomy, but Reeve is comedically stupid.
I'm guessing that's Reeve.
These mortals must not be allowed to reveal Lord Narathan's plans. Destroy them.
No one mentioned a single thing about Lord Narafin's plans, only he did right now. Narafin is the general of the occupying Altmeri forces, and apparently he has a plan that must stay hidden. This so-called plan is my main issue with the main story of the Elder Scrolls Legends. So, follow me here. After Martin's sacrifice, Oblivion gates cannot be opened from Oblivion to Nirn, but gates can open from Nirn to Oblivion. So, what Lord Narafin wants to do is kill all the inhabitants of the Imperial City and turn the city into a huge ritual structure to open Oblivion gates. And not to any particular Oblivion realm, mind you, just Oblivion in general, so that Nirn can become one huge Daedric playground. Let me explain why this concept is stupid beyond belief. First of all, the main reason why the Thalmor gained influence and eventually took control of the Somerset Isle is because they took credit for Martin's sacrifice and pushed propaganda that they were the ones to shut down the Oblivion gates. Why would a single Altmer then turn around and take part in a plan to just open more Oblivion gates? It's not that this is a top secret either. The Thalmor clearly seem to know what's the plan here. It makes no sense for them to support it. The Altmer aren't Daedra worshippers. Okay, most of them aren't, but this so-called prophecy, and it's viewed as a grand prophecy by the way, doesn't work within the context of the Thalmor's own strategy. It also doesn't work within the context of the Thalmor's ideology. Their entire theology is that they are gods trapped on Nirn because Lorkhan tricked them, and therefore they are better than the human races. How does joining forces with Oblivion make sense in the context of that superiority? It doesn't destroy the world, so they're still trapped, and it's not like Mehrunes Dagon or Molag Bal is gonna entertain their socio-political ideology. As far as Molag Bal is concerned, enslavement of all means enslavement of all. Which brings me to my third point. What then? What's the endgame of all of this? The Daedra hate each other as much as they hate the mortal races. Some of them are somewhat cordial with one another, but when the gates open, it's open season for all Daedra. Boethia, Azura, and Maridia can maybe get along and be cordial, but what about Molag Bal, Mehrunes Dagon, and Jigolag? Oh yeah, this is happening after Jigolag was freed. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't like this plot, and I don't know why they went with this. White Gold Tower is one of the towers of creation. Why not play around with that idea? This seems like the worst thing they could have done with this story. Make a plot about, I don't know, undoing Lorkhan. If that is too complicated, make a plot about deleting humans or something. This is just a ripoff of ESO's story, which in and of itself is a ripoff of Oblivion. Oh, that makes sense. So far, we have set the same invasion story 3 times, but with a different coat of paint. Okay, now that I have talked about why I don't like this plot, let's keep exploring it. So they escape the Imperial City, and Tyr, the ex-member of the Blades, suggests that they should meet a dark elf called Laneth and ask her about what Narafin's plans are.
They journeyed north to meet Laneth, a sorceress friend of Tyr's, well-versed in Daedric matters.
says they headed north, shows elsewhere. It then describes that they were ambushed, and let's pause it right here again. It was upon seeing this bandit that I thought to myself, I like the vibe of this game. While playing this game, I have not encountered a single card, a single depiction that I did not like, or had something bad to say. Tiber Septem, Vivec, Mankan Cameron, and so many more look amazing. My personal favorite depiction is Vanus Galerion. Are you ready to see this? You think Minimarco was just jealous of his immense glow? Also, here's this card of Shiogorath as the Joker. I think it looks very nice. The stories in these games are made to get people to play the card game, so it can feel like a bunch of encounters are happening and like 70% of them don't add anything to the story, but that's only because they weren't aiming to advance the plot. They were just made with gameplay in mind above all else. So on the road to Lanath's place, we meet bandits, Altmeri guards, and when we make it to the place, we find out that she was captured by Daedric cultists who will never, not in 1,000 years, tell us where they took her. Unless, of course, we beat them at a card game.
You're too late. By now the sorceress is leagues from here. Stop! We can tell you where they've taken your friend.
It can feel a bit like a Yu-Gi-Oh plot sometimes, but like in Elder Scrolls. Forgotten hero, we have captured the mage, and we're planning to commit genocide. We must now duel, and the loser goes to the Shadow Realm.
Stop! We can tell you where they've taken your friend.
I'm getting those kind of vibes. So yeah, they end up telling us where she is. We try to go there by stealing a ship, which belongs to some smugglers. The smugglers find out about this. They attack us and Tyr, but then the fight attracts the attention of Altmeri troops, so we go with the smugglers to find Lenneth. The leader of the smugglers is called Swims at Night, and he becomes essential in the Clockwork City story, along with Lenneth, whom the Daedra worshippers took because they believe that she can help them advance their plot to open Oblivion Gates. How exactly she's able to do this is never properly explained. On the way to find her, we're attacked by pirates, Springans, and goblins, who apparently killed all the Daedra worshippers, but not Lenneth, whom we now help escape the goblins, and together, the Forgotten Hero, Lenneth, Tyr, and Swims at Night start a journey heading north to find the Imperial Legion that fled to Skyrim and the Emperor himself. On the way there, we encounter spiders, drunken Nords, and soldiers who deserted the Imperial Legion. Something interesting throughout the Great War is that no matter what happens, the Altmeri Dominion always seem to know the Empire's plans and exactly what they were doing. So the gang meets with the Emperor after they deal with the deserters, and the Emperor is told by them about Narafin's plans to kill all the humans in the Imperial City in order to open up the Daedric portals. However, the Emperor is unable to attack the Imperial City because of the Dominion's ability to predict their every move, so the companions have to infiltrate the Imperial City to find the source of this power. How did they know that this power comes from a particular source and not just from a spy network, luck, or just good strategy? Listen, we need to find a way to advance the plot. Don't think on the details too much. So they go back to the arena posing as gladiators, and Swims at Night opens up a passage for them that leads from the arena to the White Gold Tower. Wait, if they already escaped the arena by fighting the cultists there, wouldn't they be instantly recognized when they went back? Shh, rest calm. This plot isn't well written. I already said that. In the catacombs, they find undead and an ancient grimoire before making it to Narafim's study, where they find the Orb of Vermina, which he was using to spy on the Imperial army. Then Narafim and Riv show up, and then there are a bunch of options about whether Tyr or the Orb of Vermina survived this encounter, but it doesn't really matter. The Orb of Vermina is a Daedric artifact. It will manifest back on Nirn eventually, and after this encounter, Tyr doesn't come up again. We make it back to the Imperial camp, having dealt with the Orb, only to find that the Imperial forces were attacked by assassins, and the Emperor himself is injured, and cannot lead the assault effort to recapture the Imperial City. So now, the Forgotten Hero has to lead the assault effort dressed as the Emperor. Many people do not like this development. The 1W Titus Smith II ever got, and it was taken away from him by the plot of the Elder Scrolls Legends. But I disagree. Titus Smith II was the most tragic emperor that the Empire had ever seen. Okay, with the exceptions of Martin and Belhazar. He had good intentions, and he was willing time and time again to put his life on the line for the sake of the Empire, but he was always facing insurmountable odds. It is important to remember that all of this, the assassination of the Blades, the sacking of the Imperial City, the Great War, the Skyrim Civil War, and 1,000 other factors happened only 3 years after he became Emperor. There is a theory that he wanted to be killed during the Skyrim Dark Brotherhood questline because of how unpopular he was, and his son could maybe be a more unifying factor for the Empire as opposed to what he was. And you know what? I can see it. It's not that he doesn't want to do good, it's that he doesn't have the resources to do good. So we assault the Altmeri Dominion, confront Narafin right before he fulfills the ritual, beat him, the ritual then fails, and Narafin's corpse gets hanged from the White Gold Tower for 33 days. Yes, that's real. And the Forgotten Hero leaves the city after the Emperor took credit for what he did. Imagine you're a battle-hardened clan member, there's a good chance that you won't live past tonight, but then a dude shows up and starts revealing top government secrets to you as a way of hyping you up because it vaguely relates to your current predicament. This is the level we're at.
As I think of it, it could have been anyone out there. It could have been
Me.
Overall, I don't like this story. Let's talk about something better. The Fall of the Dark Brotherhood was the first expansion story released for Yu-Gi-Oh! Skyrim Edition, and it brings an entirely new philosophy about how these stories are told. They introduced the idea of basically gimmick battles. Most battles have some kind of difference between them to throw a bit of spice and make things a bit more interesting, and the Dark Brotherhood is the first time they ever tried to do this. And if you played it, then you can tell. Most of them are just buffing the enemy in some way or provide an alternative win condition. I can't explain every gimmick because we would be here all day and it's honestly not that interesting, but by the time the Clockwork City rolled in, they got a lot better at doing this, and they were especially fun during the Isles of Madness. The Fall of the Dark Brotherhood also needs some context to be understood. Basically, this event takes place after the events of the main story, but right before Cicero obtained the body of the Night Mother. As a matter of fact, the story is following the events detailed in Cicero's journal, found in Skyrim. In the years since the Oblivion Crisis, the Dark Brotherhood began to face several issues. Firstly, the events of Oblivion happened, where an entire sanctuary was wiped out, and several high-ranking members had to die. Then, the new listener, the champion of Cyrodiil, left the Brotherhood and became the new god of madness. And suddenly, the Dark Brotherhood doesn't seem so strong compared to the Altmeri Dominion, the newly militarized Hammerfell, and the newly formed Penaldus Oculadus. In the years after the Great War, the Brotherhood lost all its influence in the lands of the Dominion and Hammerfell. And this is where this story begins, with a man named Duthor contacting us about a mission to destroy the Dark Brotherhood.
Come in, traveler. I'm so glad you got my invitation. I've been watching you for some time, and I think you're just the person I need. I warn you, this task will be bloody, but the cause is just. It concerns an infamous band of assassins known as the Dark Brotherhood. The Brotherhood is a foul death cult, worshipping a living corpse known as the Night Mother. Some years ago, my daughter, the poor misguided girl, murdered her own mother in order to gain their favor. She claimed to be recruited by the Night Mother's listener herself. Later, I learned that my daughter too had died pursuing this violent life. For years I have sought this listener, but she is elusive. I want you to infiltrate the Brotherhood, find her, and lead me to her. Together, we will ensure that no other family suffers the same fate as mine.
The first 2 acts of the Dark Brotherhood questline take place in Wayrest, which is located in High Rock. There is a proclivity to add a lot of side objectives that lead nowhere, because the main point of these stories, after all, is to play the card game. But in the quickest synopsis I can give, and again, all of this is said in Cicero's journal, so I am not really bringing up anything new, we begin by trying to find a way to kill someone the Dark Brotherhood is contracted to kill, so we can gain their attention. In Wayrest, we find such a person called Markham, who is a member of the Order of the Hour, which is an order of knights serving the Temple of Akatosh, but he is actually corrupt, so no shame there, and after killing him, we are now a member of the Dark Brotherhood. But on the way to kill Markham, we also uncover a plot against the also corrupt King of Wayrest. It seems that the king knew that the nobles wanted him dead, so he called upon paid courtiers to kill the nobles and lay ruin to the city and help him escape. When we confront the king, we can either let him live or kill him. Either way, the Sanctuary of Wayrest gets 100% destroyed. We then go to Falkreath to join the sanctuary there, where Astrid tells us that we need to kill a man named Rathir.
Let's see what you can do. We have a contract on Rathir, the new priest at the Hall of the Dead. There's something odd about that one. Be careful. He's been seen around Grave Concoction's potion shop.
No worries though, he's a necromancer, so no guilt. Again, we kill him, but before we do so, he does the exact same thing that Reeve did during the main quest by telling the player obviously important information that he shouldn't have told the player.
It's the assassin I was warned of. Rise, my guardians, and destroy them!
The plots of these stories would have been a lot more interesting had the antagonists learned to keep their mouths shut. So now we have to conduct an investigation to find who the traitor is and kill them. But Kotho, my good friend Lucien Lechance, told me that when there is a traitor in the Dark Brotherhood, the entire sanctuary must be purged. What's up with that? Yes, that is still the case. However, the Brotherhood is facing a labor shortage at the moment, so destroying another sanctuary really isn't on the cards. The assassin turns out to be a dark elf that operates in the Falkrith sanctuary, so we kill them too. On other news, if anyone is struggling to find work right now, I heard that the Dark Brotherhood is hiring. Anyway, we and Uther's daughter, Alison, go to Braville, where the body of the mother is. And when we go there, the town is fully engulfed in a Khajiit turf war as the two biggest skooma traffickers had a spat between them which turned violent. We then signed with one of the trafficker clans, and then we learned that Uther was the one who killed Alison's mother and blamed it on her. And now he's here with a mission to kill his daughter and destroy the sanctuary. We now have the option to either kill or defend Alison. She dies both ways, but only if we defend Alison does Uther die as well. The Night Mother's body is preserved either way, and with that, the last sanctuary of the Dark Brotherhood in Cyrodiil is officially out of commission. How terrible. Truly, the Dark Brotherhood is facing turbulent times. I hope they don't resort to something silly, like recruiting clowns who talk to themselves in the third person. Nah, that'd be silly.
But this body is forever.
I have nothing bad to say about this story. It's a faithful recreation of the story present in Cicero's journal. I would appreciate knowing why Uther felt like killing his entire family, and also I feel like they tried a bit too hard to make the Dark Brotherhood be the good guy in all this by having them kill necromancers and corrupt politicians. But let's be honest, that is the truth only to an extent. If they got a contract to kill 5 babies, they would do that as well. How do you think this whole thing started? But yeah, a very accurate depiction of the fall of the Dark Brotherhood based on already existing information. I rated a solid monotoned nice out of 10. Nice. Time to get to the really good stories. The Isles of Madness was the final story DLC to be released for Legends, but I like Sothasil a lot, so I want to talk about him last. The Isles of Madness is the retelling of the story of Talim Rand, who embarked on a journey to the Shivering Isles to cure his son Novos from his madness by striking a bargain with Sheogorath. The only problem that I have with Isles of Madness is that it's a bit tricky to put on a timeline, which can change a lot. I believe that it takes place before the champion of Cyrodiil became Sheogorath, but a lot of people believe that it takes place after that event, so I will give you the notes of both sides and then talk about the actual story. Arguments for it taking place before the champion of Cyrodiil. We get brief mentions and scenes of Morrowind in the cinematics, and it does not look like it's been hit by Bardao yet, supporting that this takes place before the fall of the tribunal. Also in the cinematic, it mentions that Talim sought help from the tribunal temple to cure his son, which wouldn't be likely if the tribunal had fallen, and he also says that he sought help from the Ashlanders, and I doubt this would be feasible if a huge comet had fallen on their faces. Callan says that he was not told this story by the Elder Scrolls, but rather he saw this story in an old journal, which might suggest a change in timeline. And finally, Sheogorath's character does not match that of the Sheogorath of Oblivion or Skyrim. He's afraid of confronting Jigolag, whereas in Oblivion, he was just pessimistic about it. And in Skyrim, Sheogorath has already won over Jigolag, so it wouldn't make sense for him to be afraid of the thing he already fought against. Arguments for this happening after the champion of Cyrodiil. The portal to the Shivering Isles is already there in the Isles of Madness, but the champion of Cyrodiil mentions that during the Oblivion Crisis, the portal had just appeared there. There might be another portal, but then again the locations look identical. I don't know, maybe the portal has a respawn timer. So Kellen and Na are in a desert, and Kellen tells Na that he will tell him the story of Talim.
I shall try my best to recall it in the writer's own words.
My name is Talim Rend. This is my confession and my warning. Once, I was one of the Empire's most cunning spies, but I left that life behind when my son Novus was stricken with a terrible madness. I sought help from the temple, from Outlander healers, and even Ashland mystics. None could help him. So I set out to make a bargain. In Morrowind, it is death to commune with Sheogorath, the Daedric Prince of Madness. They say he is a corner of the House of Troubles. But to save my boy, I would commune with any devil you could name. And so it was that I sought the fabled land of madness, a place they call the Shivering Isles. And, God's help me, I found it.
So Talim goes to the Shivering Isles to find Sheogorath. In the Shivering Isles, he finds two other characters, Cyril and Lazra. He kills the gatekeeper, similar to how the champion of Cyrodiil killed him, and then he meets Haskell, who has this to say.
I must beg your pardon, but the Lord Sheogorath will not see you. He said you were, and I quote, boring, boring, boring. Boo-hoo, my poor son. Get over yourself. No, wait. Get under yourself. That would be funny. I suggest you try to be more entertaining. Perhaps someone needs your heroic services. The Isles are full of exciting ways for a foolhardy adventurer to amuse my lord.
Now we go around and participate in different wacky scenarios to earn an audience with Shio. When we finally meet Sheogorath, he gives us the following bargain: to drive 3 sane people insane, and in exchange, he will turn us on sane again. The first person we have to drive insane is a Khajiit Kozanar. He was a murderer who went out of his way to specifically target people who called themselves heroes. These heroes are ESO references. After we convince him that he's been haunted by the people he murdered, he goes mad and disappears into the night. By the way, in this mission to drive 3 people mad, Cyril and Lazra, the people we met in the Shivering Isles, are also joining us because Sheogorath threatened them.
And I brought you some friends to help. I promised them riches, cheese, and that I wouldn't dismember them.
Surprise! Lazra's here to help. Hi.
The second person that Shio has to infect with madness is a Morrowind noble called Baron Navir. Apparently, this guy is just a self-absorbed rich guy and we have to give him an ego trip so he can completely fall into madness. We do so by fulfilling all his wishes, and in the end, he convinces himself that he is something called the Prince of Prophecy, who can just wish things into existence. So with this delusion, he falls off a cliff because he always wanted to fly. Not so much turning people mad, more so outright killing them, but it made Sheogorath laugh, so he checks out. The final person we have to drive mad is Talim's old spymaster, a Breton imperial officer named Portia that is stationed in the Reach to deal with a bunch of rebelling rich men. She hasn't done anything wrong, mind you. Sheogorath is just trying to mess with us. He also gives Talim only 3 days to drive her insane. So the plan Talim comes up with is as follows. He intercepts a rich man intel that says that they are developing a poison to use against the Imperials. We then give Portia false intel about a possible cure that can be made with flowers that can only be found in the nearby Temple of Mara. We also give her false intel that rich men are supposedly going to assault said temple, but they won't. So Talim shows up there with Portia and begs the priests of Mara for the flowers to create the cure. The priestess says, no, we don't do drugs. So then Portia is forced to kill them to get the cure. She then uses the false cure during an assault on the Dormer stronghold that the rich men occupied, and this happens.
The explosion and the gas conspired to kill most of the Reachmen along with the Bretons. Technically, her mission was a success, but witnessing such a massacre, with the murder of priests weighing so heavily on her soul, was too much for Portia to bear. I hear she did not speak after that day, afraid to utter another command, or to share another secret that might hurt someone. She was, in other words, a better person than I. After all, I was the true architect of the atrocity. I hadn't been sure the flowers would react violently with the poison, but I had known they would not cure it. Yet as I journeyed home, my guilt was a whisper, next to the expectant joy of seeing my son whole again. Imagine then my horror when I found my house empty. I ran to a neighbor, desperate for anyone who could tell me about my son. My boy, Novos, where is he? Did he run off? Did someone take him?
Talim, what are you saying? Novos is dead. He's been dead for more than a year. Don't you remember? We buried him together.
So now we're back at the Shivering Isles, but now the Saints and Seducers stop us from finding Sheogorath because Talim has officially lost it. Not that hallucinating a mad version of his son counted as sane, but now he starts picking fights with anything like trees and rocks, and it is only after he assaults his old friend Lazra, old friend as in 2 episodes ago, that he partially regains his sanity. So Lazra tells him that she knows a way to cure him of his madness, but that can only happen if she plays a song to him which would allow Talim to face his own self, and he manages to win against that version of himself and win back his sanity. Well, he regains his sanity from prior to learning that his son was dead instead of insane, which, now that I am saying it in a sentence, doesn't sound like much of a sanity at all. But hey, we take those. It is a legend in the Shivering Isles that Sheogorath keeps something he wants no one else to see in a place called Knife Point Hollow, but as anyone who's played Oblivion knows, what lies there is no weapon or secret or even a powerful person.
No, you were looking for leverage over Sheogorath, and that this old librarian can provide. Once, long ago, the one you know as Sheogorath walked the earth as Jigalag, the Daedric Prince of Order. I was his librarian, the keeper of his endless records. The other Daedric princes feared his power, so they conspired to transform him into that which he hated most, the essence of chaos itself. Sheogorath has suppressed his memories of Jigalag and destroyed almost all trace of him, save for 2, myself and the sword of Jigalag, which is lost to him. I suspect I know where that sword is. Find it, and Sheogorath will see you. Though whether to thank you or kill you, even I cannot predict.
Then Deus tells us where the sword is. We then face one last fragment of Jigalag, and then Lazra leaves, and Talim prepares to face Sheogorath alone. After several fights, Sheogorath tells Talim the truth of his situation. Sheogorath created this false memory of a mad son in Talim's brain to comfort him about the truth of his situation. And what was that truth? Talim's partner, Novos' mom, was killed by the Worm Cult, the Order of Menemarco. Overcome by his desire for revenge, Talim infiltrated the cult against the wishes of his commander Portia, who advised him not to rush things as he is clearly guided by anger, but he did not listen, and so the Worm Cult got one up on him. And how did they do that? As Talim tried to infiltrate the cult from within so he can destroy them, the cult told him to kill his own son, whom they kidnapped and brought before him in the initiation ritual so he can be killed in front of all of them. He was the one to kill Novos, but after his journey with Lazra, Talim now has the willpower to live with what he has done, but he also asks Sheogorath if he can do the same, and with another Daedric artifact of Sheogorath, the one of memories, he shows the Daedric Prince of Madness his own past. This following section, I feel, is a bit misunderstood. Talim hits Sheogorath with the wand, and he begins to remember Jigalag, but notice the first thing Sheogorath says about Jigalag.
What is this? Who's this Prince of Ardor loser? Oh, that's not me, is it? I can't ever have been that boring.
Initially, he doesn't call him stupid, evil, or even weak. He only calls him a loser, and then he regresses into calling him boring. Right now, Sheogorath and Jigalag are not different Daedric princes. They became different after the champion mantled Sheogorath, which ended the Grey March, and finally let Jigalag escape. But right now, Sheogorath is Jigalag. Given that here and in Oblivion he clearly seems to know who Jigalag is, I don't think that it's the memory of being Jigalag which causes him pain. Rather, it is the memories of being defeated as Jigalag that causes him to suffer. Think about who Jigalag is. His own nature is a contradiction. He is Paromaic in nature, which is defined by chaos, yet he is the Prince of Order. I believe that the best testimony of what curse the Daedra cursed Jigalag with to turn him into Sheogorath is given by none other than the capital S himself, Sothasil. In the Truth in Sequence, he says the following regarding the nature of the Daedra. In the days before the first ignition, the Khmer people bent their knees to the false princess, the web spinner, the prince of plots, and the queen of dawn and dusk. I do not use their names, as name cleaves one from another. You know them well, child of the tribunal. For every time you bear false witness or make foolish boasts, you do so in their name. Their threats loosen the fasteners and break the seals. They are the anti-gears that turn counter to the nameless will, servants of Paramaic untruth whose nature is the void. Of those Daedra, only the great Prince of Order knew his nature, and he went mad in the knowing. If Jigalag were to conquer all of Oblivion, that would not bring forth an era of perfect order as he wanted. It would only bring a different kind of chaos, and when the Daedra cursed him with that piece of knowledge, he was driven mad and became Sheogorath. And now that Sheogorath remembers this, it pains him, and the story closes with Sheogorath leaving Talim and his friends alone, and Talim giving us this message.
I return home now to nurse my grief, and perhaps in time, to plot my revenge on the cult of the worm. My warning to you then is this. There will always be a devil seeking a bargain, promising to take away your pains. Do not trust them. The past may be the heaviest burden, but it is our burden to bear.
This story is pretty good. I would be very disappointed to find out that it takes place after the events of Oblivion, as I feel like that would take away from both DLCs. I feel like it works better as a prequel, kind of giving Sheogorath a sense of desperation leading up to the final Grey March. I rate this story a kilogram of pulled cheese made from Balkan donkeys out of 10. Be proud of yourselves, Sheogorath fam. We finally beat the Jigolag allegations. And now for the final, and in my opinion, best story ever told in Test Legends. Return to the Clockwork City. Return to the Clockwork City is the second story expansion released for Legends, and it takes place after the collapse of the Tribunal, the return of the dragons, and the defeat of Alduin. The main character is once again the Forgotten Hero, and this is his last appearance in the franchise. It begins with the Forgotten Hero meeting Swims at night, the Argonian from the main story, in an inn in Skyrim, where Swims tells him the story about him being contacted by a mysterious benefactor to find something called Belzar's Mazed Band, an item that can instantly teleport someone to the Clockwork City. But Swims, ever the tricky lizard, decides to go find the ring and keep it for himself, where he will then teleport to the city to loot its treasures, and to that endeavor, he wants us to join him. The Forgotten Hero says yes, and then they are off. So they go around Riften and in the Thieves Guild asking if anyone has seen the ring, but they don't get any clues. Until they meet another Argonian called Sails Through Storms, who tells them that the ring is in an ancient tomb of the dragon cult that can only be accessed by those who are poisoned. So they go there, get mildly poisoned, defeat a dragon priest, but as they are about to use the ring to teleport to the Clockwork City, the mysterious benefactor from earlier and his mercenaries arrive and take the ring for their own. Swims is weak because he's poisoned, but he stumbles near them and also gets teleported to the Clockwork City. So the Forgotten Hero goes, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to use the back door. So he goes to visit Laneth, who now works in the College of Winterhold, and together they find one of the daughters of Diveit Fear, who now resides in Skyrim. She tells them that she will open a door for them to the city if they bring her the skull of a living dragon, a Dwemer puzzle box, and a toe of a frost troll. Why would you need those ingredients to access the city? You don't. She doesn't need them. She just hoped that while trying to get those things, we would get killed. She's just like her papa. So she opens a portal to the city, and this is how the Clockwork City looks now.
Alfei Fear was true to her word. At long last, the hero had found Sothasil's hidden city. Now to find Swims at night.
A decaying, broken, mossy mess. In our attempts to find Swims here, we draw the attention of the locals, the former apostles of Sothasil, who, after the mercenaries begin ravaging through what little remained of their once glorious city, become guarded against all outsiders, including the player. We tell them that we mean no harm, and together with them, we save Swims by beating up the mercenaries. The mercenaries, in their pillaging, looted a memory star, one of the devices Sothasil made to store his memories in the mnemonic planisphere. And now we have it. When we access the memory of the memory star, we get what I believe is the best mission in Legends: the death of Sothasil.
This day has appeared in all my simulations. The end. My dear friend Almalexia has come to kill me. Now everything depends on my calculations being correct. My machines need 22 minutes to seal the chamber of Lorcan, so that is how long I must live.
Your time has come, Sothasil. All these years you've looked down on me. Have you any last words? Why are you silent? What are you hiding? Speak, curse you! Fine then. Die, old friend. Fall before the one true God.
I have done it. I die. But what is death? A natural function. The chamber is sealed, the work begun. It will take approximately 207 years. But what is that? A rounding error. The new heart of Lorcan will be completed. And it will power my city for all eternity.
The heart of Lorcan. Azura, protect us.
What are you talking about?
The heart of Lorcan is one of the most powerful and dangerous artifacts in history. It's what Sotha Sil and the others used to become gods. Dagoth nearly used it to take over Tamriel, before the Nerevering destroyed it. But if this memory is true, then somehow, somewhere in this city, the machines have built a new one.
From here, the adventure of the Forgotten Hero and his gang take a backseat as they keep finding the memories of the late Sotha Sil to find the location of the Heart of Lorcan. It shows Sotha Sil's escape from the Red Mountain after Dagoth respawned, and more interestingly, it shows Sotha Sil's memory of his best student, a man named Meganar, who, by Sotha Sil's own admission, was a bright mind and an excellent student. He did, however, develop the wrong idea about what Sotha Sil stood for, so he was cast out, and the door to the second Heart of Lorcan was reinforced to make sure that he would never be able to access it. I want to talk about Sotha Sil's character throughout all of this. In his monologue in ESO, he seems to have the idea that people project their idea of Sotha Sil onto him, and that this manufactured idea of what he is, in many ways, more important than his actual character.
I am whatever the people need me to be. A guardian, an oppressor. For some, too distant. For others, too meddlesome. I am the canvas upon which they paint their dreams and resentments. A vessel for their hopes and doubts. A mirror, nothing more.
And it seems that after millennia of doing this symbiosis of character has merged in a strange way. So much so that Sotha Sil refers to himself in the third person.
But to suppress such a mind would be a sin against potential. And so a sin against Sotha Sil.
An interesting idea, but still, that mind we saw in the events of ESO is still there, being able to recognize Mekinar's creations as both beautiful and abominable.
Acolytes modified against their will, merged with beasts through steel and sorcery. Beautiful in their way, but abominable.
All I can say is, Sotha Sil fans are eating really good with this one. You know who is not eating good today? Dagoth fans.
Behold, arrogant tribunal. The power of the heart flows through me and my minions. We are the gods now.
Wait. That's not what he sounds like. You're scamming me. So we find the Heart of Lorcan, and then the mysterious benefactor shows up again, and it turns out to be Mekinar this whole time. Realistically, it couldn't have been anyone else by this point. So Mekinar gains the power of the heart, and then we have to search for more memory stars to find a way to stop him. So through one of those memory stars, we find out that the heart had become unstable before, and that Sotha Sil stabilized it by copying the designs of the tools of Kagrenak and creating a set of replicants. So we set out to find those tools, but on the way, we are ambushed by a lot of fabricants. Here, we have the option to let either Swims or Laneth fight the fabricants, a process which ultimately kills the person that stays to fight them. I personally keep Swims around because I really like his name. Then, we go to different places around the world where Sotha Sil hid the tools, and we eventually manage to assemble all three of them. Then, we have one last fight after Mekinar reanimates the person that died in the fight against the fabricants, be they Swims or Laneth, and then we fight Mekinar himself. Here we have the option to use the power of the heart, fight Mekinar who is also using that power, but then we have to die to stabilize it. Alternatively, we can destroy the heart, which would result in fighting Mekinar as mere mortals, as by doing so, he also loses the power of the heart. And after we defeat him, the Forgotten Hero gets to leave, but the city is completely abandoned, as it becomes completely unlivable, and the last of the Clockwork Apostles have to migrate back to Tamriel. Personally, I always go with the keep the city around option. Given that the Forgotten Hero doesn't appear again at all, I am guessing that this is the option that they took as well. Plus, it's what he would have wanted.
The hero's body disintegrated. But the Clockwork City lived on, powered by the heart, and Galen believed that the hero's consciousness lived on there, a whisper in the still churning machinery.
And this was the end of the return to the Clockwork City, and therefore this eulogy. So as we say our final goodbyes, I want to say some final good words about Legends. Rest in peace, sweet prince. You were 1,000 times better than that hack Tales of Tribute, and although you are dead and gone, believe me, your memory will carry on, because I made a full archive, and if they end up making an open source remake, then this whole eulogy section is gonna end up feeling a bit out of place. And as a final word to all you lost souls of the Test Legends community who have given your hard-earned money to support this game, all I have to say to you is that your money most definitely went towards the production of castles. Does this make you the loser of this entire situation? Anyway, see you all next time. I have a stack of mods that I need to play through. Have a good day, bye bye, add me on Master Duel.